You can spend 3 hours building the perfect plan for a life you still have not begun. You can choose the tools, color code the calendar, watch 6 videos about the best method, imagine the version of you who finally becomes consistent, and go to bed feeling strangely productive even though nothing in the real world has moved. That is the trap. Planning can give you the emotional reward of progress without forcing you to face the risk of progress. By the time you realize what happened, you are not standing at the beginning because you lacked information. You are standing there because the plan became a place to hide. You probably do not think of yourself as someone who avoids action. In your head, you are preparing. You are being responsible. You are trying to prevent mistakes that could waste time, money, or effort. That explanation feels reasonable because part of it is true. A useful plan reduces confusion and makes the next move easier. But there is a point where preparation stops serving the work and starts protecting you from it. And the easiest way to miss that point is to judge your day by how mentally occupied you felt. You can be exhausted by a project you have barely touched because your brain has rehearsed every possible future except the one where you begin imperfectly. The first reason you plan so much is that a plan gives uncertainty a shape. A real project is alive. People can reject it. The result can disappoint you, and your ability can turn out to be less impressive than it looked inside your imagination. A plan is safer because it stays under your control. Nothing can criticize a business that exists only in a document. Nobody can dislike a video that has not been published. You cannot discover that your first attempt is clumsy if your first attempt is always scheduled for next Monday. Planning lets you remain the person who could do something exceptional, while action forces you to meet the person you currently are. That difference matters more than it seems. Potential is flattering because it has no evidence against it. You can imagine that you would write brilliantly, train consistently, build a successful company, or transform your health if you finally committed. Once you begin, potential becomes performance, and performance can be measured. The first page may be weak. The first workout may expose how out of shape you feel. The first offer may be ignored. If your identity is built around being intelligent, talented, or full of promise, an ordinary beginning can feel like a threat to your entire self-image. So you delay the evidence and call the delay preparation. You may notice this in the strange standards you create before allowing yourself to start. You need a free weekend, a better laptop, a complete strategy, a perfect morning routine, a quieter house, more confidence, or the certainty that the idea will work. Each condition sounds sensible by itself, but together they form a locked door. The hidden rule is not really, I will begin when I am ready. The hidden rule is, I will begin when beginning can no longer make me uncomfortable. And that day does not arrive because discomfort is not a defect in the process. It is the price of leaving imagination and entering reality. There is another reward inside planning that makes the pattern addictive. Every time you design a system, you get a small burst of hope. You see a clean future in which your problems finally organize themselves. Tomorrow you wake up early, follow the checklist, resist distraction, and become someone you respect. For a moment, the future version of you feels so vivid that you borrow their pride before doing their work. Then the plan meets a normal day. You sleep badly, something takes longer than expected, your energy drops, and one missed task makes the beautiful system feel contaminated. Instead of continuing badly, you redesign the system. The new plan restores hope, and the cycle begins again. This is why you may have abandoned notebooks filled with perfect schedules, downloaded several productivity apps, or repeatedly announced that this month will be different. You are not necessarily addicted to organization. You may be addicted to the emotional reset that organization provides. A new system erases the shame of the old failure because it tells you the problem was the method, not the avoidance. Sometimes the method truly was poor, but if every method fails at the exact moment, action becomes boring, uncertain, or visible. The method is no longer the main story. Look closely at what you do when the next step is obvious. If you still search for more advice, compare more tools, or expand the plan, you are probably not solving confusion. You are regulating emotion. You are trying to lower the anxiety of beginning. But planning cannot finish that job because confidence is usually produced by contact with the task. You do not think your way into the feeling of being ready. You collect proof that you can survive being unready. The proof comes from sending the imperfect email, recording the awkward first version, opening the document, or doing 10 minutes of work while part of you still wants to escape. The uncomfortable truth is that your brain often prefers a clear failure in imagination to an uncertain result in reality. In imagination, you can explain everything. You know why the project might fail, what people might say, and which obstacle could stop you. That forecast creates the illusion of protection. Reality is less polite because it may surprise you in both directions. You could fail for a reason you never predicted, but you could also succeed through a route your plan could not see. When you demand certainty before movement, you eliminate both possibilities. You protect yourself from disappointment by quietly protecting yourself from discovery. The solution is not to become reckless or stop planning. The solution is to change what a plan is allowed to do. A useful plan should end in a physical action that can be completed soon, preferably before your brain has time to build another courtroom around it. Build a brand is not an action. Choose the final name may still invite endless comparison. Write 3 bad names on paper and send them to one person by noon is an action because the world can tell whether it happened. The more anxious you are, the smaller and more visible that first move should become. You also need to separate reversible decisions from irreversible ones. Your mind may treat every choice as permanent because permanence justifies delay. Yet most beginnings are cheap experiments. The first topic is not your final identity. The first routine is not a lifelong contract. The first version is not a public verdict on your intelligence. If a decision can be adjusted after you receive real information, then your job is not to predict perfectly. Your job is to buy information through action. A rough attempt often teaches you more in 30 minutes than another week of preparation, because it exposes the problem that actually exists instead of the problems your fear invented. Try giving planning a budget. You can spend 20 minutes deciding what to do, but the next 20 minutes must produce evidence. You can research 3 options, but then you must choose one for a 7-day trial. You can outline the project, but one piece of the project must be made before the outline is improved. This constraint will feel irresponsible at first, because your avoidance has been wearing the costume of responsibility. You may feel that you are moving too soon. That feeling is not proof that the move is wrong. It is often proof that the hiding place is closing. You will also have to learn how to continue after the plan breaks. This is where many people who love planning lose entire weeks. You miss the morning session, so the day feels ruined. You fall behind the schedule, so the system feels false. You eat one unplanned meal, so the health plan seems gone. Perfection turns a small deviation into permission to abandon the whole experiment. A stronger system assumes that real life will interfere and gives you a recovery move. If you miss an hour, you do 10 minutes. If you skip a day, you return the next day without redesigning your identity. The measure of a plan is not how elegant it looks before disruption. It is how easily you can re-enter after disruption. You may worry that smaller action means smaller ambition, but the opposite is usually true. Grand ambition without contact with reality is only a beautiful story. Small action is how ambition acquires weight. One published piece can become 10. One uncomfortable conversation can change a relationship. One client call can expose the language your market understands. Momentum is not a magical force that arrives after motivation. It is the reduction of uncertainty that happens when the next step becomes familiar, and familiarity can only be earned through repetition. There will still be a part of you that wants one final plan before you begin. It will tell you this project is different, the stakes are higher, or a smarter person would think further ahead. Answer that voice with a question. What information can only action give you? If the answer includes feedback, stamina, timing, audience response, skill, or emotional resistance, then more thought cannot complete the picture. You have reached the border where planning becomes guessing, and the only intelligent move is a controlled experiment. You do not need to destroy the planner inside you. That part of you is trying to protect your time and your pride. You need to give it a new assignment. Let it design the smallest test, define the acceptable loss, and decide when you will review the evidence. Then let action take over. Planning should be the bridge you cross, not the house you live in. Before this day ends, choose the plan you have been polishing the longest, and remove everything except the next visible move. Not the perfect move, not the move that proves you are talented, and not the move that guarantees the future. Choose the move that creates evidence. Do it while it still feels slightly premature, because that sensation is the doorway you have been decorating instead of opening. Your life does not change when the plan finally becomes flawless. It changes when the plan loses its power to protect you from beginning.